Hello, everyone. Okay, so today is a little bit different. We're not talking about philosophy. I wanted to run a thought experiment, but, well, it's not really a thought experiment. I had a thought. I've been obsessed with Sherlock Holmes for quite a while, and so I wanted to talk about him, and I've been obsessed with trying to get a handle on how Sherlock Holmes does his observation and deduction. He talks about logic and observation. He talks about how a good logician can take an observation and deduce a meaning from it, and that's kind of the basis of that's sort of the basis of how he lives, and it's sort of his natural inclination, so it comes easier to him, and he's also honed this idea, so it's something that it's how he understands the world, and then he takes that and applies it more heavily. It'd be like, I guess it would be like if you were born and you're kind of like naturally a more strong person, and so you work out and you use your natural ability as the thing the way that you see the world, the main way that you interact with the world, and you build upon it. Your natural ability is built upon. And of course, okay. I don't want to digress. The thing I've struggled with, stick with me, the thing I've struggled with is how is my lack of ability to jump to these conclusions and an assumption that it is simply a lack of, not being a book character and not having these superhuman abilities. And even in the books, he says things like, it's simple observation. If you just took the time to observe, then you too would be able to draw these conclusions and absorb these facts and then figure out what he figured out. And so, the most obvious conclusion is that he's a fictional character, and fictional characters are always more interesting than real people because you only see the most interesting parts of their lives, but also they can do things that maybe a real person can't do because the author or the video, the story writer, whatever the thing may be, the medium, is able to take that person and set things up to make them look like they can do anything, basically. There's a book, King's Dark Tidings, and the main character is he is essentially as infallible as you can be, and of course there's a natural inclination to be like, how can anyone be so amazing? And it's like, well, you can't. But I was thinking a little bit more about Sherlock, and okay, so let's take his most simple and basic, straightforward deduction system of looking at, let's say, someone's piece of clothing and deducing perhaps what they do for a living or some piece of their character. And it's easy to be like, I could never do that. But you do that. You can look at, let's say if someone is wearing something, a high visibility vest, and that in and of itself might tell you they're a biker, they have to be road safe, or they're some sort of construction worker. Now, there's usually other indicators. They might be, they might have like broad shoulders, they might have dirty clothes, or they might have what is classically known as work clothes on. And so you can, from there, you would deduce, oh, they're some sort of worker that works in probably outdoors, but in some sort of environment where they need safety PPE. So it's likely that they have steel-toed boots. They probably wear gloves quite a bit, leather gloves. And in this particular case, they have their high visibility vest on. So right there, you as a casual, let's say non-observer, basically, are able to look at someone and kind of just be like, ah, that is a construction worker or a carpenter or a heavy duty mechanic or something. And you can put them into this bubble. So sure, you haven't deduced, what they did that day or exactly what their job is, but you have narrowed them down from being anything at all. They could be anything in the world to being, okay, there's something to do with, they have to wear safety PPE, and these are the jobs that require safety PPE. What if you look at shoes? Let's take shoes, for example. Shoes are actually quite unique, and most people don't think about it. But let's say you grew up somewhere that they don't have shoes. So you come to North America, everyone's wearing shoes, and you observe the shoes and you say, everybody wears these shoes. And the observation you might come to is quite basic. It might just be like, it's cold here. And so everyone wears shoes all the time because it's cold. And it's also maybe safer. And there's also this like weird no shoes policy, no shoes, no service policy. So, okay. So these are some basic assumptions you could come to. But as someone who maybe grows up in a Western type country, North America, USA, or Europe somewhere that wears shoes all the time, you can quickly bring to mind different types of shoes and what they mean. You can look at a pair of hiking shoes, or a pair of runners, or a pair of like work boots, or sandals, and you can know that this shoe tells me this thing about this person. I would say in this case, the best time to observe someone or to observe people and their shoes would be probably in the middle of the week, in either the middle of the day or at the beginning or end of the day. Maybe you go to the park or you go to the grocery store would be a good one. And you observe people around between 3:30 and 4:30 when they're getting off work, and you observe people's shoes, likely they're coming straight from work, and you would easily be able to determine, okay, it's likely if they came straight from work, they're wearing their work shoes, and possibly their work clothing as well. And so you would be able to easily deduce, okay, this is a construction worker, or this is one that I bet you most people could figure out is, let's say you look at someone and they're wearing runners, but the runners are quite worn down. An assumption that you could easily make is this is someone who stands a lot. They might not run at all, but for their work, they stand a lot. An example would be nursing, cashiers, or waitresses. Usually those types of people wear the most comfortable shoes they can because they're standing or walking, and standing is an extremely uncomfortable thing to do. Walking around, running, it's not so bad, but just standing is very uncomfortable. So they want comfortable shoes. Runners are good for that. They're easy to get insoles for. They're more ergonomic, and so for long-term standing, you can kind of deduce pretty quickly, as someone who knows different types of shoes, what this person perhaps does for a living or does for a hobby. If they're paint a picture for you, if you see a man with like shorts that are slightly too short, and they've got runners on, and then they've got a t-shirt on, and they're very slender, you can quickly assume that they are a runner. And so right there, you, just a normal person, whether you're naturally observant or not, have deduced from an observation something about a person you've seen. And this happens to you so quickly, so often, and you don't even think about it, and so you kind of write it off, probably, as like, yes, that's just normal. Everybody can do that. And it's true, probably most people can do that, and so it's normal, and so we do write it off. But if you, let's say you can look around and you might be able to say, oh, this car, like I can look at the back end of a vehicle and I can always tell what type of vehicle it is, even if there's no sticker or indicator or anything on there to say what type of vehicle it is, just because I grew up looking at different types of vehicles, and so now I can naturally look at certain vehicles, mostly trucks for me, and be like, this is that. Even from quite a distance, when I can't see, let's say I'm coming down the highway and there's a truck way, way off in the distance, and all I can see is just like the outline of it, I can still tell what type of truck it is. And whether it's a 1 ton or a half ton, the 3/4 tons are harder to tell, but this is something that I don't really think about, but it is technically an observation and deduction. And then there's some things that can be deduced from, if this truck is a work truck or a personal truck, that's pretty easy to deduce, because in North America, most work trucks either have logos or are white. And that's just kind of a thing that people know. And so I guess I'm just trying to say that, you can do this now. Imagine if you were quite intrigued by this fact. You noticed that, when I look at someone who is wearing steel-toed boots and a safety vest, that they are likely a construction worker. And I'm able to notice that. What else can I notice? So you look into what's all the different types of shoes, and then you can tell how good, let's stick with the construction worker scenario. You can tell how good those shoes are. So you can tell if they're good shoes, it's likely that they're maybe a more advanced construction worker, or they're working a good paying construction job, because you can get paid really poorly as a construction worker. And if they're cheaper shoes, likely they're a younger person, then they're probably just getting into the trade. So you can kind of see that. If they're a little more heavy set, then they might be a mechanic, because they don't have to do as much running around, but they do have to do hard work. Whereas a carpenter will likely be quite wiry and thin. And so you can start to observe these things. Of course, I know that because I've worked in these different industries, and I've unconsciously made these observations. But a person could take this a step further if they chose and say, okay, well, I've naturally observed that different types of shoes mean different types of things about different types of people, and that combined with, a person's physique may mean different things. Like someone, an older, overweight person with runners on tells you that they likely have bad feet, right? They probably have sore feet all the time, and they're just trying to be comfortable, but they're obviously not athletic. And so you can take this idea and you can dig into this sort of information further. Like I said, you can learn about, different types of shoes. different types of high heels, and how, certain shoes are more expensive. High heels, there are cheap high heels and expensive high heels. And so if you see a lady on the town and you say, oh, these are cheap high heels, then you say, okay, she's just out having a good time, but she's just a normal person. Or, oh, she's quite well off. She either is making good money or has a partner who makes good money or parents who make good money. And so she can afford these expensive shoes. Or if for some reason you're able to tell that she doesn't have a lot of money for whatever reason, maybe she has an old beat up car, but nice shoes, it might be that she saved up all her money and bought herself a gift of nice shoes. And so you can kind of look and you can learn these little details. Same with, what's another good example? See, I don't actually know enough to probably give you any more examples, but I would encourage you, and the plan is to start looking deeply into certain things. I'll pick a topic. I think my first topic will be shoes, and we will look at trying to observe different types of shoes and how they seem to correlate with a person. And I would encourage you to do the same. So I will come maybe next week or whenever I have time. I'll make a video about some observations I've made about people's shoes, and then I can present my findings, I guess. And then together we can slowly piece together a more observant model of the world. Because remember, you are observant, you don't know it though. If you see someone in a white lab coat, you can deduce something about them, at least that they are in a scientific career of some sort. If let's say you had never heard of a lab coat though, you could likely deduce that nothing from seeing a lab coat. You wouldn't know what a lab coat was or what it was for or what it meant societally. But if you were able to research different types of jackets and say, okay, this jacket is expensive and it's for, pardon me. This jacket is expensive and it's for cold weather. This jacket is for people who work in the hospital. And these types of clothes are for people who work in the hospital. And this type of jacket is for like a construction worker type thing, but usually worn by people maybe in the north or in the timber industry. For some reason, there are certain types of jackets that are worn more in the timber industry, I think, like this one. Whereas the steel industry, I think, has their own type of jacket. And then there's the rain jacket. So you can say, oh, okay, this person spends a lot of time in the rain. There's a certain type of outdoorsy aesthetic. And you could get to know, okay, these are the different types of outdoorsy jackets. And then when you see an outdoorsy jacket, you can say, oh, this is a cheap outdoorsy jacket or expensive outdoorsy jacket, and etc. So I would encourage you to pick one thing and just think about it, one perhaps piece of clothing, and just think about, okay, what do I already know that this piece of clothing tells me within society, no matter what that is, and take some time to observe that and build that observation skill. Maybe look at that piece of clothing online a little bit, or in your day-to-day walking around or driving. Well, walking. If you're walking around or sitting in a cafe, then observe some passersby. And of course, based on the weather, see, okay, this person wears this sort of thing and this person wears this sort of thing. And what does that tell me? And is it a weekend or a weekday? Weekday would tell you more about people's careers. And then a weekend might tell you more about people's hobbies because, well, I don't have to explain. But now, because one thing I'll say is like on the weekday and the weekend, I dress fairly the same, but on the weekdays I wear steel-toed boots. But my partner is a very, very hardworking outdoorsy person, and so they wear hardcore pants, steel toes, heavy jacket. I was gonna say bulletproof vest, reflective vest, and etc. The safety hat and all this. What am I talking? Hard hat. But on the weekends, they prefer to wear a dress as much as they can and sandals if possible, weather permitting, and maybe to do their hair a little bit or something. And so they like to look nice. And so someone seeing on the weekend wouldn't be able to tell from their clothing what they do during the weekday. But they might be able to tell a little bit about what type of person this is. This is a person who likes to be, they like to feel free and flowy and maybe a little alternative. And so maybe they're a little hippie. And if they were a very good observer, they might be able to see that they are quite strong or that they have, well, there's not a lot because see, here is where I am not a good observer, generally speaking. And so I think, what could you tell about my partner that would tell you that they're an outdoorsy worker, but on a weekend, while they're dressed how they dress on weekends? And I can't think of anything, but I know that certain people could, and I think with a certain amount of intentional, here's where I struggle, because I want to say intentional observation, but for me, it seems like I need to first learn about something, and then I am able to fully observe it. So if I maybe spent some time working in the field with my partner and doing what they do, I would know that, okay, their knees and shins might be scuffed up because my knees and shins are always scuffed up. And so this is something that I could work on for sure. But yes, it's something that I could at least perhaps read about, or even just spend some time thinking about, okay, what does this type of person do? Let's say they're a tree faller. And so, okay, what do? Well, they have to hold the chainsaw. They have to use axes. It's a lot of walking. And they're in the forest a lot. So likely they'll get scratches from walking through the forest. They're working with trees. So it's likely that they might get splinters in their hands. And the chainsaw, they might smell like gasoline. And these sorts of things. And so I could just... this is where some of Sherlock Holmes's imagination comes in, where he thinks about what does this person do day to day, how would that affect their body, or their location, how would that affect where on a day-to-day basis they might have to go, and where would that going affect, maybe in his case a big example is like the mud on their shoes. And using your imagination to imagine what they have to go through in a day, and then how you can extrapolate that to maybe an injury they have. My partner has an injury on their wrist. And so you might be able to look at that and figure out that you can look for injuries of the wrist, and that may tell you something about their day-to-day career. But I've gone on too long. Hopefully I can cut some of this out, but I've talked most of it. Anyways, so we will pick this up. I'm going to observe shoes for the week, and I will come back to you with my findings and hopefully be better for it. I'm going to try and have a little notebook with me so that I can take notes and be like, well, anyways, so do the same or don't. And if you are a casual observer and you have noticed some details about some career or something that you find very interesting, then please do share it in the comments. Thank you very much, and have yourself a good day.